This is week 2 of this Explorers Forum on democracy, values, and the 2020 election, which is based on the voter reflection guide created by Interfaith Power and Light.
Remember that our forum is intended to be a safe space for all of our voices to be heard, accepted, and respected. And we have this opportunity to learn and grow and be inspired to act together.
After opening prayer, Sue will introduce our guests. Last week, we began with portions of the Confession of Belhar. Today, we're going to begin with a Native American prayer that seemed appropriate for our conversation today. So we invite you to pray with us. Earth, teach me quiet, as the grasses are still with new light.
Earth, teach me suffering, as old stones suffer with memory.
Earth, teach me humility, as blossoms are humble with beginning.
Earth, teach me caring, as mothers nurture their young.
Earth, teach me courage, as the tree that stands alone.
Earth, teach me limitation, as the ant that crawls on the ground.
Earth, teach me freedom, as the eagle that soars in the sky.
Earth, teach me acceptance, as the leaves that die each fall.
Earth, teach me renewal, as the seed that rises in the spring.
Earth, teach me to forget myself, as melted snow forgets its light.
Earth, teach me to remember kindness, as dry fields weep with rain. Amen.
Amen. Our topic today is protecting God's creation, climate justice for our children and our world, which will help us consider this question. As people of faith, how do we respond to the urgent threat of climate change and fulfill our moral responsibility to care for God's creation and love our neighbors? We're very fortunate to have as our guests 2 staff members of Delaware Interfaith Power and Light, and I will introduce them to you now. Lisa Locke is the Director of Programs for Delaware Interfaith Power and Light. She also serves on Delaware's Weatherization Assistance Policy Advisory Committee and is a member of Interfaith Leaders for Neighborhood Ministries. Before her move to the Atlantic Coast in 2013, Lisa lived in West Michigan, where she served as administrator for West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, project manager with Sustainable Research Group, coordinator for West Michigan Clean Cities Coalition, and associate director of the West Michigan Environmental Action Council. Other previous experience includes church administration, community education, public speaking, and journalism. Lisa has a passion for exploring the mysteries of the natural world, understanding the interconnectedness of species, communities, industries, and systems, and writing about them. Joining Lisa is Shweta Arya, who was born and raised in India, where she earned a master's in business administration. After moving to the US in 2005, she became a certified teacher naturalist, Pennsylvania master naturalist, National Geographic certified educator, and she taught environmental education at both the Delaware Nature Society and Tyler Arboretum in Pennsylvania. As a lover of the outdoors and a citizen concerned about climate change, Shweta was trained as a climate reality leader in 2018 by Al Gore's Climate Reality Project. She worked at the grassroots level in her local community and joined DIPL first as board member and then as their outreach director at the beginning of 2020. So Lisa and Shweta, thank you for joining us this morning, and I'm going to mute my microphone and turn things over to you.
Well, thank you so much. It's really great to be with you all this morning. I want to start by we have a history together with First and Central, but it's been less active over the last few years. But I just wanted to share a few images very fond images. And this was one of the first events that I got involved in. And it was a moral action on climate vigil that we held on the steps of your church in 2015 when the Pope was here. And at that time, we got together for this vigil on the night before he was to present to Congress. And it was the most wonderful event that brought together all of these different faith leaders. We had 2 separate sessions that day, all sharing their perspectives, connecting their faith with climate action, and calling on Congress to hear the words that they would, to listen to what they would be hearing the next day from the Pope. It was a really wonderful experience and a wonderful entry for me into into your congregation and the faith communities in the Wilmington area. So let me ask you this. How many of you before today or before you heard about this meeting were familiar with Interfaith Power and Light? Okay, not everyone. So this is a great introduction then. So just to give you a little background, we are one of 40 state affiliates. So we are working together around the country, each in our own unique ways, of course, through faith communities and community partners to address the causes and consequences of climate change. And as we like to say, to scientifically inform and spiritually deepen our understanding of our relationship with the natural world and with each other, and then to act on those understandings. And as Sue was saying in the introduction, we believe in the interconnectedness of all life, that we are responsible to care for the wonders of creation, that in caring for creation, we are caring for ourselves and honoring the Creator. And I'd have to say that if I have learned nothing else in the intersection of my personal life, my career, and my spiritual journey, it is the critical need to broaden and deepen our understanding and our reverence for the intricate web of life. As it relates to our discussion today, this understanding of this direct relationship between the severity of the issues that we're facing, the economy, jobs, energy, hunger, disease, national security, war, and our understanding of and respect for our relationship with the natural world. And we need to make that understanding real and relevant to our lives, to our experiences, and to our moral sensibilities, and then to find ways to translate that understanding into action. I love this quote by Rachel Carson that says, "Now I truly believe that we in this generation must come to terms with nature. And I think we're challenged, as mankind has never been challenged before, to prove our maturity and our mastery, not of nature, but of ourselves." So I look forward to exploring these concepts with you this morning. And Shweta is going to be the main one really to look at this issue in a little more detail. It's so great because lately we've had a lot of these opportunities to explore, especially issues of social justice and climate. We had a wonderful climate conversation just last Monday through Peace Week. And so I'm going to and then we have a couple more coming up with this same theme. So this is wonderful how this is getting more visibility and people are more getting much more aware and exploring these issues and all of these interconnections. So I want to take just a minute and tell you a little bit more specifically about what we're doing, and then Shweta can take over for the conversation. But you can imagine that all these affiliates function in very different ways, from Texas to Alaska to Delaware. But so much of our work is very on the ground. It's very working in the communities. Some of our main programs are Faith Efficiencies, which is a program where we coordinate energy assessments for faith communities around the state. And this is funded by Energize Delaware, which is a 501c3, but it was created by the General Assembly to manage all the energy money that comes into the state. So they put on all these programs, and different organizations manage those programs. But because of the economic strains right now, they're making these assessments free, and which would normally be around $3,000 to faith communities throughout the state. And it gives them such a practical way of addressing their own energy use, their costs, lowering those costs, while they're protecting the environment at the same time and creating healthier environments. We also provide through that presentations for members on home energy programs. We've created earth care displays with congregations in their buildings, which we hope to return to doing again. In fact, we put one up at a mosque in Dover last week. And we've been putting up earth care displays until the virus in libraries throughout the state for a month at a time, which is a wonderful way of providing a broad range of education to people throughout the state. And then we've got a Windows of Hope program, which is an interior storm window construction, installation, education program that's specific to low-income communities. And you can imagine all these old buildings with all these drafty windows. And these are very practical ways of helping lower-income families reduce their energy use, actually create healthier environments. And we are looking, it looks like we have just received a significant grant to help with this program to expand it, working with local landlords. So how great is that? So we'll have more information on that coming up, but it also has the possibility through this program to create jobs, because we're going to be paying people from the communities to make these windows. Again, very practical. And then a very exciting program that we're doing is called Climate Conversations, which we had with Peace Week, where we're facilitating opportunities for people throughout the state in classrooms and boardrooms and libraries and faith communities, in anywhere people gather to talk candidly in a similar way that we're going to be doing this morning about climate change, and sharing people's perspectives, their observations, their confusions, their fears and their hopes, and then finding areas of common concern so that we can come up with ways where we can be working together, even when we don't agree on everything, of making this less political and divisive and more unifying and practical for people. So it's been very exciting, and we're working with youth and college campuses. So we've actually helped create a Delaware Intercampus Climate Coalition with students around the state, both in college and high school, meeting on a regular basis. And we're going to be hosting monthly climate conversations with different campuses hosting every month, which I'm sure you can agree that youth voice is so exciting and important now. So we do and working with green teams and faith communities, and of course, advocacy is a huge piece of what we do. But I want to turn it over now to Shweta, who is our outreach director and working on a lot of these outreach programs. And we are just so grateful to have her, but I want to turn it over to her to help us spark this discussion this morning.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Can everyone hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So can you tell me how much time do I have to present?
You have, well, let's see, we could about 15 minutes, and then we'll have some questions, discussion, and I know you have a final video. So it's 11.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. All right.
All right. So give me a time check if I'm going over. I tend to go over. So I have a short presentation that I usually do, as a climate reality leader. I have been presenting on climate change So I'll make a quick presentation about that. But before that, I just wanted to thank you all for letting us here to present and utilizing the reflection guide that we have, that IPL has, for faith, climate justice, water. So it has everything for people to reflect on different subjects. Why it is so important for all of us to go vote in this election. We're not supporting any particular party, but we are supporting, the causes that are close to our heart, right? We are supporting democracy, so we need to go out and vote. If we care for people, if we want to protect all God's creation, if we care for the environment, big or small, or, people of color and, immigrants, like there's just so many things I can think of that are threatened today, but we have the power to change it. So, let's all make our efforts to go out and vote. That's the most important thing. But these topics does give us reasons to understand why it is important, right? These areas. So Delaware Interfaith Partner Light works with faith communities all around the state to address, climate change and mobilize people to really take action on climate. And just because, it impacts everyone, each one of us, right? Whether we are rich or we are poor, whether we are young or we are old, whichever field we belong to. And it's not even only happening here in our country, right? It's happening globally. So, it impacts all of us. But unfortunately, it impacts first and worst the people who are most vulnerable, right? Marginalized people, people of color, older people, so we need to protect them and protect them from this threat of climate change. And I have a short presentation, and I'm going to see if I can open that. I hope I have the right one open. I love talking about climate change. I think people don't talk about it enough. Climate change is a game changer. It's a game changer for me. So in 2018, I did this training with Al Gore, Vice President Al Gore, Climate Reality Project, and it really changed my perception. It really gave me meaning to really work in our community to create this awareness. Because it impacts each one of us, touches our lives. And I have two children, UV and Syra, one in middle school, one in elementary school. And we all have our reasons to work on, for leaving our environment in a better state for our future generation. And not only for our own children, but, but the other, all of the children of the world, right? It is important because we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And we have a moral responsibility to protect our environment for the same reason. I'm a Hindu, and, in our religion, we do call Earth our Mother Earth. And, in our thousands of years old scriptures, they call to, protect our Mother Earth for the same. So now, must we change? We have these three questions, like, must we change? Can we change? And will we change? So let's talk about that. So we're talking about a very thin atmosphere around our Earth. It looks very wide, but it's just 60 miles of that atmosphere that we are dealing with. And look at what we put in it every single day, every 24 hours, 152 million tons of man-made pollution goes into it because nobody is getting penalized for it, right? It's just open sewer for people to create this fossil fuel pollution and industrial pollution and then put it in our atmosphere, which is polluting our air and impacting our health. So what is the basic science behind climate change, right? Solar radiation comes, these radiations get trapped in our atmosphere, and some of them are absorbed by our land and oceans. Some of them get contained in our atmosphere, and then some of them go back. And that, the these solar rays that gets contained in our atmosphere, we need that, right? That we need some kind of global warming to actually, that's how life is possible on this planet. And we need that kind of warmth. But what's happening is, due to all the air pollution and pollution particles, more and more heat is getting trapped, in our atmosphere. And that's raising the global temperature. And that's where the problem lies. So what is the biggest source of these greenhouse gases that get accumulated in our atmosphere? We do have, we live our life, and, we have a lot of industries, industrial agriculture, we create these big landfills and fill them up, transportation, fertilization. A lot of these things create greenhouse gases, but what is the biggest cause of that? Anybody wants to take a turn and shout out? What is the biggest cause of these greenhouse gases? I know you all are muted. Okay. So it is.
I think it's automobiles.
Yeah, it's fossil fuels, right? So, when the industrialization started around in 1800s, that's where we started, where we discovered the fossil fuels. We started digging them out from the earth and burning them. We did not know anything better, right? Although scientists have been warning us that when we dig out these fossil fuels from our, under the earth and then burn them, the whole process creates so much carbon pollution and methane pollution that it pollutes our air really bad. Can we do things differently, right? There are alternatives now, and we'll talk about that when we talk about solutions that will not damage our atmosphere. And if you look at, since 1800s, the global temperatures have been rising very steadily as well. So if you look at the records, so NASA has been recording the temperatures, since forever. The hottest temperature ever recorded have been if you look at the last 5 years, now we are in 2020, but if the hottest 5 years are the last 5 years that, that have been ever recorded. So it's consistently been the hottest years, and since we know it. So temperatures are steadily rising around the world. And what is happening is extreme heat is really taking a toll on human life and animal life. We are seeing more dangerous days, heat index above 105 degrees. So you can see that consistently rising. This is for Wilmington, Delaware. In 2000, we had around average of 8 days above 105. Now, by 2050, they say we'll have 40 days in our summer, which might average above 105 degrees. That's a lot. So now we need to think of people. When we have air conditioning in our house, we sit in our air conditions and we are good. But think about the people who will be impacted most are the poor people who don't have enough air conditioning, or the homeless people who are out there who have to deal with all this heat, right? So, Delaware is definitely at, ties with Arizona as the 4th fastest warming state of the nation. So what this heat does is also it impacts the hydrological cycle, our water cycle. we all learned it in our elementary level science, more evaporation of water, more precipitation happening, and then water returns. But we'll see more precipitation events happening because of that. So ocean heat is rising, and so more water in the air and more precipitation events. And then we see more hurricanes and superstorms happening. Now, hurricanes have been happening, since a lot, long time in our history, right? That, that has been natural part of cycle. But the problem is that these hurricanes are becoming more stronger and more damaging to human life. We are paying billions of dollars to clean up this mess that's created by, disasters, the natural disasters. We'll see more, we are already seeing more heavy downpours. I'm sure, if I let you unmute, you can tell me that you felt the more precipitation events, more flooding, more flash flooding. I live in Pennsylvania, and the amount of flash flooding that we see, my phone buzzes every time there's a flash flooding in the area. And my kids have started noticing that we've never seen so much, flash flooding in the area. Like, just a couple of months back, the flooding was, I live in suburbs and I can see it right here too. So I'm sure that people, see that around where, in the coastal areas, you'll see it more. So research says that 8 to 11% of Delaware land could be underwater by 2100, year 2100. So, most of the areas, are low lying in Delaware, and Delaware land is sinking. So we'll actually see more flooding, impacts. And then, communities like Southbridge, right? People are already struggling to make the ends meet. So you can think about all those urban spaces places where you'll see these flooding events. Poor people who have to migrate, and that's why they're calling them climate migrants. People have to, because of these events, whether it's wildfire or flooding, people have to leave by thousands, and they have to leave their communities and go somewhere else. And that's what we call climate migration. People have to leave their whole cities. And of course, it's impacting not only the US, but, all over the country. I put this photo because I was in India that time when that flooding event happened. It was disastrous. So same extra heat, it's also causing something, on our land. When excess water gets evaporated, we see more droughts, longer and longer droughts. And we see most of them in the west side, right? And that's why we see, and droughts, droughts not only cause the wildfires that we see around us, it also impacts our food, right? There's so many people, there's so many farmers who their whole livelihood is depending on, what kind of food they can grow. And of course, like we are, our population, the global population is rising. How are we going to, keep up with this challenge of feeding like 8 billion people, right? So by 2050, they say there'll be 10 billion people on this planet. How do we propose to feed all of them?
Shweta,
So
probably have
yeah.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. So, we see more wildfires, weather catastrophes are increasing. And we see more sea level rise, right? Billions of dollars in damages and life. So, it impacts our food, our water, human life, and then life of all other creations, whether it's birds, pollinators, everybody's getting impacted. Climate change is the biggest public health emergency. World Health Organization already declared climate change is the biggest public health threat. So I'm going to skip through some of my slides. We now risk losing up to 50% of all land-based species in this century. So what is the cost of carbon, right? There's just so many that we can't even cover in one presentation, but you can see the total people who really care about economics, right? It's the biggest threat to our global economy too, right? And I like to say that, our faith communities are the first communities that really come up and clean up. Like, if there's a wildfire, if there's the flooding damage, if flooding event or extreme heat, extreme cold, they'll open up their churches and help people. We are there to help people when they are in need. But then this also gives us, a power to actually speak on climate action too, right? Why get to that stage where people gets impacted? Why not speak at the stage where we can actually take climate action? So must we change? Yes. We have the solutions, clean energy. I'm going to skip it through some slides. We have wind power. So, humans are the smartest species on this earth. We know we have the solutions right here in front of us. They're cheaper now, than fossil fuels. Can we opt for them? And that's what we are doing through our programs is, wanting our faith leaders and faith communities to be the model for sustainability, doing the right thing, and inspiring the community at large to do the right thing. Like, all right, so go, adopt clean energy, put solar panels, manage your land sustainably, and then inspire others to do that. So join us with your voices and votes and choices to fight the climate crisis. Do you want me to talk about the solutions right now or later, Sue?
I think you better do it right now because it fits in with the action items. So yes.
All right. This is my last slide. So, so what can we do, right? We understand if we understand that climate change is the biggest threat, right? Sometimes problem feels so big that it paralyzes us, and it really makes us feel that we are not capable to take any action, but that's not true, right? Each one of us have more power than we think. So we definitely can take individual actions. We can adapt a low carbon lifestyle. What can we do for that? Plant-rich diet, eating low, lower on the food chain is the biggest step that you can actually take. You don't have to become a vegetarian, but you can cut that, red meat out of, your diet maybe once a week, start cutting it and seeing the impact, because anything that is good for you, for the environment, is actually good for our health too. You reduce, eat less meat, it's good for your health, good for the environment. Switch to fossil fuel energy supplier. You don't have to put solar panels. If you can't, at least switch to a green energy supplier. Use less plastic, eat sustainably grown food. These are the individual actions you can take. But, we are at a time in climate crisis that those actions in itself is not enough. If we were talking about 30 years before, then these individual actions were enough. But today, we need everyone, each one of us, to actually get involved in our communities like this, talk about the problems, and say, what can we do as a community, as a church, as a school, as a workplace? What can we do? How can we, take a political action, like, advocate for clean energy, clean climate policies, right? How do we advocate for those? Can we write to our political leaders? And of course, we can go out and vote for a leader, who understands the science behind it, who believes in science, who can really take the right action. So this is, this is what I was going to talk about, the action. Yeah.
Shweta, I wish we had more time because your enthusiasm about this is contagious. And we're all very grateful for both what you and Lisa have presented to us. I want to open it up to the folks that are watching. First, does anybody have any questions for either Lisa or Shweta that perhaps haven't been answered already? I had a whole bunch of them, and Shweta answered every single one of them. So let me just ask if there's any questions or comments.
Noble, it looks like you unmute.
Yes, I do have a question. I have a question and a comment. Patrick and I just the other night saw David Attenborough's A Life of Our Planet, and it's fabulous. It talks about everything Shweta has mentioned, from how over the past 50, 60, 70 years, the numbers of species have decreased, the amount of rainforests have decreased, where we're going to be in another 10 or 20 years or so, and what we can do to change this. And I heartily recommend it. Everyone watch it. It's really excellent. My question to Shweta is this. I found it curious when she mentioned that, I mean, Delaware, I think, and maybe Arizona were the two states with the fastest global warming. And I found that curious. Tell me, what is it specifically about Delaware that puts us in this situation?
I was just stating the fact that I found. I'm not sure why, but I know that it is one of the fastest sinking, when in terms of land, it is fastest sinking. So we see more sea level rise. But I was just, I always love to put facts, and, you can go to that website to actually see how they research it. But yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why it is like that, but Delaware definitely has, more hotter days than other states on average.
Thank you.
Anyone else that has a comment or a question for either Lisa or Shweta, or just a comment?
On the last slide, it has HOA as one of the organizations. What do those letters stand for?
Oh, your housing authority,
Or
your
homeowners
neighborhood
association. Homeowners
homeowner associations. Yeah.
Others this morning?
Are there other issues in Delaware in terms of voting concerns or policy issues after the election, specifically in Delaware, that we should be concerned about? Lisa or Shweta?
Well, one thing that we're going to be looking at, this is fascinating. I don't know if you heard about at the end of the session in June, we worked so hard to try to get this new bill, SB 250, to the floor for a vote, which would have increased the renewable portfolio standard, which just basically requires how much renewable energy our regulated utilities like Delmarva have to provide. And around the country, we're trying to get that raised, that amount. We're at 25% right now that's required. We're not anywhere near there yet, but raising it to 40, 50, ultimately 100%. And we could not get it to the floor, but the legislator, because we had so many letters and calls going into them, they claim it's going to be the first bill that they bring to the floor in January. So that is a disappointing, but an encouraging story, that because of the outreach, and part of that was faith leaders. We put together a letter that had signatures from 40 faith leaders, including 3 bishops for the state of Delaware, that went to every legislator and the governor, and it made a difference. So
that's something,
enough difference at the time, but
that's something that we could advocate for, and that's something that individuals and as a congregation we could do collectively. So that's a very specific step.
And that's a huge thing, because it makes a difference when they hear from people. That makes more of a difference than anything.
We know that Senator Chris Coons is a member of our congregation, and he reminds us of that frequently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let me just see if there's any other comments or questions, because I know, Lisa, you have
A short video.
a short video to conclude our time. Anybody have any more comments?
I think Connie. Really quick, there is a group that is working together to promote offshore wind project in Delaware. It's been done in a lot of neighboring states. And so they're putting together a letter to the governor, and they want support from other organizations, faith groups, can put their names in, like, the IPL are, we are supporting that letter. But if your congregation want to put your name in support of that letter that goes to the governor, that I can send you some more details about that. You can read the offshore wind stats and something like that. I mean, that really helps when they can see some faith leaders or faith communities supporting a letter like that. When it goes to the governor, that really impacts. We can really add our voice to matters like that.
Great, thank you.
I will quickly address the question from Connie. There's a there's a program called Drawdown, which we can't go into right now, but we'd like to at some point. But there was a major research project done globally of what the top climate solutions could be. Number 6 was educating women.
Mm-hmm.
And the key about educating women so much had to do with of population and having more control. So that is a climate solution there. And then I just want to say this video is less than 4 minutes. So if you can just hang on a few more minutes, but I would also like to say, obviously, hopefully this is a beginning of a conversation. There's so much that we can be doing together. We are here to support you in your efforts and bringing congregations together in interfaith ways, working together just makes it all the more hopeful and inspiring and energizing. So we hope
when the day comes when we're all reopened, maybe we can invite you and Shweta to come and join with us.
Well, that would be great, and maybe have a climate conversation, which we've been doing virtually and breaking into groups. So, but I know we're already going to go over a couple minutes, but I will leave you with a very hopeful message. It was the video shown at the 2014 Climate Summit. It was their opening video.
Thank you.
Here we go.
One day, we will wake up to find that the energy that powers the alarm clock came from the breeze through the trees the night before. And we will go to work that morning riding the rays of the sun. It will light our cities and power our businesses. It will warm our homes and cool our workplaces. It will reduce sources of conflict and fuel our economies. It will connect us all. It won't scar the land or poison the seas. The food we eat will be good for our bodies and good for the planet. And the weather that day won't make us worry for tomorrow. There will be more jobs and less disease. The sea level will stop rising. And species will stop dying. The question is, how do we get to that day from where we are today? All 7.3 billion of us. We start by deciding that beyond our doubts and differences, such a day truly exists. And that is something each of us can do today. We can make today the day we stop thinking that the changes required to get there are impossible and beyond us, and start realizing that they are not only possible, but what the future requires of us. We must stop turning from the warnings of science and fear and denial, and instead turn toward the solutions and partnerships we need. We can make today the day we stop pointing at each other in blame and instead chart a new course together. We have never faced a crisis this big, but we have never had a better opportunity to solve it. We have everything we need to wake up to a different kind of world. We need our leaders to be brave and their choices to be bold. They will either remember us as the generation that destroyed its home, or the one that finally came to respect it. We have every reason in the world to act. We can't wait until tomorrow. This is our only home. You can choose today to make a world of difference.
Very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that and for being with us today. And let's share together this closing prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it's in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you again, everybody, for being here, and Lisa and Shweta for your leadership.
Yes, thanks
And
very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Been nice to
Thank
start to
you.
get
Thanks
to
for
Looking forward to continuing the conversation.